Let's go
So obviously, the first thing I mentioned there is obviously we're looking at the debate around the old Celtic end. So basically, the proposal that many of us will have seen in recent days, which has been put together by the Green Brigade and the Boys and the North Curve. Basically, for any of you who haven't seen this, we will share the video in the show notes for this episode. But essentially, the suggestion is that Celtic convert the traditional Celtic end at Celtic Park, officially known as the Jockstein stand at the moment, into a safe standing area. This would be similar to what we have already in the Green Brigade section at the corner of the North Stand and Lisbon Lions stand. Lads, there's a whole lot to play for with this proposal, and many fans have been voicing the pros and cons over the weekend. But what's your initial response to this in general?
Yes, but. So I think it's a premise. I think it's a great idea. You can start to see. So I suppose, first of all, are the Green Brigade and the Boys pals again? Well, pals, is that?
I think that they want to move ahead with this one. I don't know if they're pals.
Well, that's a problem in itself.
Well, do you know, these supporters groups all have their own identity, I suppose. So I wouldn't go into the full depths of what I've heard in that sense.
I would like to know that we're all pals before that
Well,
goes ahead. Because they're basically putting them in amongst another.
Oh, absolutely. But I think then you maybe look at a tier each.
So I think it's only bottom. I think top wouldn't get standing because,
Right.
Safe standing,
Safety,
tumble and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
Where they are just now, obviously Green Brigade in its North Curve and the Boys, in the southwest corner.
Yeah.
And there's a disparity, so they're singing, and there's a kind of void in between, and it just doesn't really work. So anything to bring that together, I'm all for. Anything that improves the atmosphere in the stadium, I'm all for. I would actually go further, and I'd like to see it as part of an overall stadium revamp and take the south stand, main stand, up to the same level as Fergus's stands. So I suppose it depends how ambitious we want to be. We know these guys can create great atmosphere, and I think that the kind of pattern they're following of Dortmund and the rest, it clearly works. So it's a logical step. Broadening it out a wee bit. There's all the great stuff that the Green Brigade do in terms of community work, charity work, but broaden it further. Some of the stuff they do that it's not great. If you're an away fan in Europe or in Scotland and you go to take your seat and you're not sitting there because Green Brigade are sitting there, that kind of stuff. There's a wee bit of, we're all Celtic fans, but I'm a better Celtic fan than you. That kind of attitude doesn't work for me at all. I'd say the club could help out with that and say, here's a Green Brigade block of tickets for away games that could solve that, in a stroke of a pen kind of thing. But I think there's a lot to be discussed there and a lot to decipher as to what we actually want going forward, and it's got to be a whole stadium approach rather than these guys want this, you've just to shuffle aside. I suppose they put themselves in a position with some fans where they're now asking for favours to move, and it doesn't need to be that way. It can be cohesive and we can all be moving forward together, and that's where I'd like to see it go.
So I think on that one as well, just to kind of clarify on that, they do get allocated areas, they do get allocated tickets, but what they have is a massive following that aren't actually under the allocation.
I agree with that. There's a lot of hangers on kind of stuff.
This is where the slight issues can be caused with that. I've experienced it myself. I don't think I've actually sat at my seat at an away game that's been on my ticket. I think that can be the issue with that. Hopefully something they can look at, like getting that right, because that again would buy some respect from other fans as well.
There's maybe a bit of self-stewarding required,
possibly.
And the guys are well able, to do that,
Absolutely. Miff, what about yourself? What do you think about it?
I pretty much agree with most of what James said there. Anything that improves the atmosphere of the stadium is a plus for me, and it clearly does. I also quite like the possibility of that being behind the goals. I think as a spectacle, it would certainly improve what's already a brilliant atmosphere or an atmospheric ground. What you just have to be wary of here, though, is the fact that what's been in place has been in place for so long. The seats may be generational, things like that. It becomes quite emotive when things like that are involved. My granddad sat there and my dad sits there and my sons, all that type of thing. So when things like that are involved, I just, like James says, it's about the cohesion and how we communicate moving forward and what's actually achievable. Probably the most important thing. But as a concept, I'm all for it. Absolutely.
I think there's always a practical solution, like as you say, if communicated correctly, in terms of how you manage that, because it's a much bigger number than they've got just now. So you're displacing a much bigger number of fans. You're not going to fit those fans back into North Curve. So where did they go? Did we don't have a season ticket anymore? You know,
True.
If I was sitting in Jockstein, I'm North Stand, but if it was Jockstein, I'd be sitting going, well, am I not getting a season ticket anymore?
But then also, I think that there will be appetite from those sitting in the Jockstein that will probably want to be involved in this as well. I do generally think that is, you know, there is an appetite for safe standing. I think at the moment, there's 2,700 fans around that. It's in the safe standing section at the moment, and they reckon it's the same amount on a waiting list to get in there. So there is appetite for it.
That's the bit I think is key, is understanding there probably will be a fairly large swathe of people that are already sitting there that would be game for it. So that's the bit we just need to be careful on.
When it came out that they're considering to push for this, I was sitting at the game on Saturday, and when you look at it, you know, sometimes you're just so focused on the park, obviously, but when you look at the size of Celtic Park, it would be something incredible. I think it would be an amazing sight if we got it and we'd done it right, and you know they set up the right way to show different types of displays that you kind of see over in Dortmund with the yellow
I'd
ball.
love to see it both tiers if we could find a way to safely do that.
Incredible.
You know?
It would be absolutely incredible. I also think as well there's a lot of logistics. So we've got a disabled section in that stand as well as the number 7 seats as well. Are they season tickets? Or
Number 7?
Aye, or is that
Pay as you play kind of thing?
I think it might be pay as you play, but
there might be some corporate tables.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, so I don't know if the argument's to be had to even try the opposite side, but then
the opposite side's the control room and the new disabled section and the audio room, you know, the safe audio for people who want that kind of thing.
And also if the negotiations were to happen down the line for a bigger away section for the derbies, that would rule that out as well. So it is the area they want.
Take all the tickets off them and never give them tickets.
In an ideal world,
I would go for the bigger allocation. I would, but it's 0 or all it used to be.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. That's a fair point as well, to be honest. So obviously with that atmosphere, we've seen that at the likes of Dortmund and others. You can see why there is a desire from some at the Celtic Park to get on board with this, can't you? Like, I think I wonder if there's people on the board that are probably, you know, wanting this debate as well.
They've got a fractious relationship with the board, you know, fans groups, because sometimes, you know, John Paul Taylor does a power of work, you know, keeping that relationship together, and he's the go-between. And sometimes in the past, you know, they've put up banners that John Paul had thought were going to be something else. It's things like that. And don't get me wrong, I probably loved the banner, right?
Yeah.
But that's not great in terms of keeping that relationship with the board. I think the board, I think they're certainly more educated now as to what fans groups can do. You know, it's not just fans moaning or whatever. You know, the fans groups create the spectacle and they raise everyone else's participation in the game. So I think they're more open to it than they were maybe 10 years ago or so. You know, so I don't know, but they need to start, you know, making those moves and having those conversations now, which I suppose is what they're doing with putting out the release last week.
Yeah, I think we're having a look at the pros and cons then. So with the match day atmosphere, there's no doubt that the Green Brigade plays a massive part in the atmosphere at Celtic Park on match days, and I think this could be increased dramatically with this initiative, as we've already mentioned. Current season ticket holders, like we've said, obviously many season ticket holders will have been in that section of the Jockstein stand for years, maybe reluctant to either move or even have to stand during the games. I'm obviously thinking particularly of older fans here as well. The costs and the logistics of it as well, because obviously no info's been released as yet and how much this would actually cost to implement, nor if the club would automatically be granted permission to do so if they wanted. And a lot of the chat I've heard recently is with the amount of people sneaking into the standing section, UEFA are actually not too happy with the way it's been used. So I don't know if there's sanctions to be faced with Celtic in that, but then the answer to that is to create more space, isn't it? It's quite a difficult one.
Meet the demand.
Well, I think that's what it boils down to. You mentioned there about the people that are currently standing there are matched by the number who would like to join them. So I think it just makes sense to meet the demand and create a bigger area.
Yeah.
It just boils down to, can it be achieved based on, you know, displacing people's always a bit funny, you know. So I think as long as it can be people that wouldn't be up for it or wouldn't want to stand if they can be moved to their convenience, or broadly enough people can be moved to their convenience, then I would absolutely be for it. I just think it would be such a great spectacle and would only enhance what is already a brilliant atmosphere.
Yeah, the standard thing you mentioned, older fans as well. There's an arrogance with that I don't like amongst some Celtic fans, where I'll stand if I want and all that stuff, and you've genuinely got, you know, a guy in his 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever, you know, around you, and he's like, well, I'd like to see the game.
Aye.
You know, I've been coming to Celtic for 60, 70 years. I'd like to see the football. And there's a bit of, I'll do what I want. It doesn't work for me as who we are as a fan group, you know. Again, maybe it's sectioning things off. It's typically Hampden, really, you know, and we know Hampden's a shambles their stadium, which we'll come on to later on. But, you know, do you better section that by age groups and stuff? You know, there's a wee bit of planning required there. Yeah. But if we do that, you can alleviate these things. I'll happily stand at these games, no bother, kind of thing. But there's others that, you know, won't because they can't, and then it creates a wee bit of kind of stooshy around, you know, certain lines of sight and things like that. So I think while we don't have sections, we all need to just be aware of, you know, what everyone can and can't do in terms of physically being able to stand or whatever. So I suppose that plays in with it as well.
It's a fair point. If the opportunity arose and it did happen, would you sit in it? Would you stand in it?
Paddy, I'm 46, mate.
Right, okay. Are you going into this older category? Is that what's going on here?
I tick a new box.
What about yourself, man?
I would.
I think I would be.
Get the boys in.
The wee man's got to be doing that soon anyway. He's 11 now, so he's I mean, because we sit we're in the Lisbon line, so he just sits all game like that,
watches them.
He's like, Dad, look, taps off. Oh, you're dead. He's just sitting rubbing his hands like, come on.
Aye.
So he'll be game for that as soon as he's able.
I think back to, like, obviously when we spoke about Yellow Wall, but it's the families you actually see in the Cop at Anfield. I like that. There's a right element of this is where the, like, generation upon generation is built in there as well. I think that's quite a nice thing.
It's something they've really got to try hard to protect with, you know, the financial side of English football. You know, I saw a brilliant interview with a Liverpool fan outside the ground, and he was just scathing. He said, I used to go and I could stand anywhere or sit anywhere, and I would knew 4 or 5 guys or bumping whatever. I don't see anyone I recognise anymore. It's all tourists, it's all corporate, it's all that stuff. Yeah. So, you know, all the harder job for them to keep that, and another reason why I wouldn't want to be in the EPL, you know.
Well, similar club that we're obviously talking about, but I seen a Borussia Dortmund fans complaining about their ticket price going up to €250.
I know.
If you're listening, Mr. Nicholson and Mr. Law, I'm just saying.
You go and get him a £110 million TV deal.
Well, aye, he'll be like, no bother, Paddy. No, I think it's a good one. Final questions on it, guys. Do you want this to happen?
I think you want it to happen, you know, because the basic question is, do you want the atmosphere at Celtic Park to be better? I don't think there's any Celtic fan that says no to that basic question. It's more of how do we, you know, route the path from here to there, and how do we do it in a cohesive and communicative manner? And, you know, is there's some behaviour of, and it probably is, like you say, Paddy, the people that surround the Green Brigade rather than the Green Brigade themselves. Some fans would say, well, I'm not looking to get more of that in my match day experience. I would say there's some songs, if you want to, you know, open it up, some songs that aren't helping any push towards a United Ireland. Yeah. They're not helping, you know, any reputation of Celtic. And there's a lot of fans, not really myself included, but there's a lot of fans that really, really jars against. So how do you know, is there a code of behaviour? Is there a lot of, you know, songs we can sing and remember, a lot of things that we want to remember, but move forward in positive ways? And I think just there's elements of that are negative, and a lot of fans will push back on it because of that.
Okay. Smith?
For me, yes, I would like to see it happen. I think you always have to evolve and move the club forward. I think this is just one small part of that, even though, ironically, more standing space is actually what you had previously.
Aye.
But I think under the way that football is now, comparative to other stadiums in Europe, a larger standing space it will be more accommodating for the next generation of fans who, whether we like to admit it or not, are the most important, because they'll be the ones that take it come forward.
Yeah. Just an interesting one on, we're going to talk a little bit about Fergus McCann later on. His initial engagement with Celtic was to loan them money to revamp the stadium, to rebuild the stadium, essentially pre-Taylor report, and it was going to be 48,000 standing, 24,000 sitting, 72,000 capacity stadium. So you can maybe if you do the main stand, you get to that.
Because the plans, I don't think it would be too different away from that of the stadium as it is just now. That's interesting. That's a good one. Next question, I'll go to yourself, Miff, first. Do you think it will happen?
Yes, I do. I think there is a genuine desire for it to happen from most. Well, certainly the fan groups are influential at the end of the day. They are influential, especially amongst the younger members of the support. But I just think it seems like the fact that we already have a smallish section of standing, I think the natural evolution is to have a larger area. So I do think it will happen.
Yeah, I think it'll happen. It's a matter of, right, we've got a brilliant test case here. We've got a smallish manageable number. What's working, what's not working? How do we amplify what's working? How do we, scale down what's not working, i.e. stop it entirely? And then take that and expand it and, bring it into the new area. We won't be asked this question. I don't think any of us sit in Jockstein Lower, so we won't be asked this question essentially. It's not like it's going to go to, the stadium and everyone's got a season ticket or beyond and say, do we have your vote? It's going to go to the people who are getting shifted. And then it's not really a voting basis. It's more of a, how do we manage you into a new seat and how do we keep, groups together? I mean, I used to sit with 5 or 6 of us together when we were in our, 20s, early 30s kind of thing. And there'll be sections like that in the Jockstein Lower, I'm sure. And it's a bit of like, well, no, we've all got tickets together for the reasons. How do you, decant them to a new part of the stadium? These are practical issues that, all practical issues can be resolved with the right people and the right attitude. I think it will happen. It's just a matter of how and when. Yeah,
I definitely think it's a case of when, not if. 100%. It's an interesting one, guys. Obviously, it's got the fans talking about it over the weekend there. And like I say, just watching the Aberdeen game and just looking at that stand, I thought, God, I could see that. So,
what did you feel from your seats on Saturday, where you could see the boys doing a bit and the Green Brigade doing a bit, and kind of swirling around in between disjointedness?
I've kind of tuned out a wee bit, to be honest, in the terms of I've just, like, I used to be in the standing section.
But you're not OG?
No. I was there for day one, but none to do.
Big drum paddy?
Big drum paddy, aye. First to take my top off. I learned pretty quickly that even if one of the biggest games, there was about 5 guys standing at my seat and I didn't know who they were, and I couldn't see what was going on in front of me because of a flag, and I was just like, I was maybe 20, 29, 30, and I thought I want to watch the game. So I got the move up to 405 and love it up there. Absolutely great view. And I get that there's both sides of the coin though, 100%. There's a passion for it and there's definite hunger for it, but there will be those that just want to watch the football. But I actually don't mind the both of the groups at different ends. Can sound a bit mishmashed, absolutely.
That's kind of right, yeah.
But it's good hearing a different variation of songs.
It's good getting it from a different part of the ground.
Absolutely.
I like your conflict.
Like conflict and negativity, that's your thing.
No. But it's good. I think sometimes that, there's almost like an over-reliance on the Green Brigade to create the atmosphere. I think it's good that there's other areas of the ground that singing can start from. I think it's just good that it's not overly reliant on one fan group.
I would say that is true, but the third part of that is that, Celtic Park used to be, singing all round.
Yeah.
And that's not really happening. I know the Green Brigade was started to create, atmosphere, but everyone then sits back and waits for, doesn't really get involved as much as they maybe used to.
Well, I think this reopens all of that. I really do.
Yep.
A bigger vocal presence. I think it reopens it. So I think I'd love to see it. I really would. Okay, guys, we'll move on. It's this week's Mystery Celt.
Come on.
We'll start with obviously a quick reminder of last week's Mystery Celt for anyone who missed it. So clue number one was I signed for Celtic for 350,000. Number 2, I have 10 caps but no goals for Scotland. And number 3, I've scored a goal in the Championship playoff final in England to reach the Premier League, and I've also scored in the Champions League. The answer, of course, was Piero the Hero, Stephen Pearson. So obviously, he started and ended his career at Motherwell. What did you think of his time at Celtic?
He didn't really probably reached the heights he would have hoped. I think that's fair to say. Good Motherwell boy, good our ladies boy. Won the Scottish Cup with our ladies. Did Piro?
Aye.
Yes. I know his brother really well. So we were all delighted when he signed. You know, really local boy, done good type thing.
Yeah.
Was sparingly used actually by Anil. Anil signed him, but it was a hard team to break into. That time you had Lennon, Lambert, Petrov, and that's when he joined. He actually probably did a wee bit more under Strachan. You know, he was in and out the team under Anil, done a wee bit more under Strachan, but I think Piro was one of those guys that absolutely maximised his ability. He was so fit and athletic, he had a good left peg on him, but he was just such a willing worker that I really think he got a lot out of his career just through his sheer hard work and dedication. Really, really well regarded, Derby County and also Bristol City as well, and also by the guys at Motherwell. So all in all, a great career, represented Scotland, represented the Shire very well. Well done, Piro, son.
I always think of the game he came on for Strachan at Tynecastle. I just loved that, you know. He took the game over 2-0 down.
The 3-2.
3-2.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's
Brilliant.
exactly what I mean, anyone says Piro's name, that's the game I think of, you know.
Aye.
And that's one of my favourite Celtic games of all time.
Yes.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yes, I watched that in the Brass Button, which is now sadly closed.
Watched that in Jack's in Donegal. It's a good one.
Oh,
was that Boxing Day or something?
Aye.
No.
New Year's Day.
New Year's Day.
Big Owens in Coatbridge for
New
me.
Year's Day.
I'll never forget as well the hurt in Craig Gordon when he lost the third goal. The anger.
Aye. That's not going away.
Mad Jambo. So obviously with Stephen Pearson, he signed for Martin O'Neill Celtic in January 2004, and with the club for 3 years before signing for Derby County in January 2007. He won the PFA Young Player of the Year in his first season and was part of the team that knocked out Barcelona in the UEFA Cup. Don't forget about that as well. Won 2 league titles, 2 Scottish Cups and a League Cup with Celtic, as well as the 10 caps for Scotland. James, quite a mixed time overall at Celtic, but a guy who lived the dream, as Miff said.
Yeah, it was a fairly tough time for Celtic in general. You know, there was a lot of changes at Celtic. You know, the Martin O'Neill era giving way to Gordon Strachan era, and it was, budgets were really changing. I thought he was good without being excellent. And we were talking last week on the show about how a guy like Greg Taylor last year was good but not excellent, and now you just wouldn't see past him. You know, he's just got to be in your team. Whoever would have thought it, Miff, right? I know.
See on that one, actually, when I was asking the guys if they wanted to bring a question to the day's show, is he a candidate for Player of the Year?
100%.
Taylor?
100%. Yeah.
I think he might do it.
Yeah.
Honestly, he's been outstanding.
Left backs don't get to be Players of the Year most of the time,
Unless you're
unfortunately.
Emilio.
Yes. But the point was on Pearson, Taylor is where he is because Ange recognised this guy can fit in my system. He's got intelligence to play in this system. And myself and Paul last week said, if it wasn't for Ange, it could have gone a different road entirely. So my point on it overall is if there was an Ange type manager who'd got hold of Pearson, could have get more out of him.
Mm-hmm. No, good point. Very good point. Okay, guys. So
Miff is just miffed that anyone has said anything negative about anyone from Motherwell. Never mind Greg Taylor.
you can't do it. You can't do it. There's a little defence thing, even if it was a Motherwell player. It's weird. Strange place. Kidding on Motherwell. Okay, so we'll move on to this week's Mystery Celt. Motherwell Celt, I was about to say. There you go. He didn't play with Motherwell. He's not from Motherwell.
Right,
so
okay.
I'm giving you that as a clue.
Miff knows all them.
Again, as we've done over the past couple of weeks, the first 10 people who reply with the right answer to this week's Mystery Celt on Twitter will be gifted a monthly pass with ourselves completely free, and that's of the Celtic Exchange Plus. So good luck for you guys on this one as well. It is me that came up with this one. It's not been Tino, so you might get it very easily, or you might say Paddy's never hosting again. So we'll see how we got on.
Let's see, aye.
Lads, clue 1. After my stint at Celtic, I played with 3 English Premier League teams. So after my stint at Celtic, I played with 3 English Premier League teams.
Not Stan Petrov, not Sutton.
Clue 2.
Gary Caldwell.
Clue 2.
Steve McManus.
I captained my country at the 2006 World Cup. So I captained my country at the 2006 World Cup. Okay, and clue 3. I was part of a team that knocked Celtic out of UEFA Champions League qualifying. So I was part of a team that knocked Celtic out of UEFA Champions League qualifying. So while the lads are having a wee think on that one, I want to give everyone a reminder of the additional content we provide over on the Celtic Exchange Plus. We provide pre and post match podcasts for every Celtic game, and we have a very special preview episode on Friday of this week ahead of Sunday's League Cup. We also offer special bonus episodes with ex-players, coaches and journalists. And if you haven't already done so, you can experience the Celtic Exchange Plus now, absolutely free with our 7-day trial. Just visit thecelticexchange.com/sign up to get started and enjoy all the additional content we offer to our subscribers. We've got subscription options starting at just £1.50 a month. So if you enjoy what we do and want to hear even more for us across the week, then visit thecelticexchange.com/sign up now. Easy for me to say. Anything else?
Yeah, Van der Snow, Jerry Jarosik.
Oh.
Reggie Blinker.
Timer is going, guys. Timer is going.
See where I'm at with the English clubs. Berkovic? Nah. Calling it.
I'm sorry, boys.
Petrov?
Nah. It's been said.
Petrov?
I said first name I said.
Okay, lads. The host takes the lead. It's now 4-3. It's now 4-3. You can do it next week. I'll be back that side. Don't worry. Actually, no, I'm not here next week.
You know?
I'll be doing it for Aaron. So remember, if you think you know the answer to this week's Mystery Celt and want to win a month free of the Celtic Exchange Plus, then simply reply to our pinned tweet at Celtic Exchange using hashtag Mystery Celt.